What's up, guys? My name is Andrea. I am a practicing astrologer. I've been using astrology for about the past 10 years in my own personal process of evolution, my own spiritual journey. I think astrology has been an excellent tool for creating a greater sense of self awareness, both that intrinsic sense of self awareness where I am becoming more aware of what I'm feeling and sensing and perceiving and experiencing, as well as an external self awareness, which means basically understanding how other people perceive me as well. If you haven't gotten into astrology um, and used it as a tool for personal evolution, I highly recommend it. 10 out of 10 experience. But today, what I'm going to do is talk about the aspect of the sun squaring Neptune. Now, this can be both in your natal chart and it can also be the happening by transit. And but today I'm talking very specifically about the transit because this is the aspect that's forming right now. And man, I have been feeling it. So we are going to break this down and talk about really what it means a little bit more in depth. So when the sun forms a square to Neptune, this is a direct challenge between clarity and illusion, between what's real and what you've been telling yourself is real. The sun wants honesty and openness and transparency and clarity and the ability to stand at the center of an attention with integrity. And the sun is literally the light of conscious awareness. It's where we perceive reality clearly and without distortion. And anytime the sun forms an aspect in Neptune, we begin to shine the light of conscious awareness into the fog. So now let's talk about the planet Neptune. Neptune often has a hard time clearly naming and articulating what is being perceived. And this is not because Neptune is inherently deceptive, but because the information that filters through the lens of Neptune is often deep and emotionally complex and nuanced, and it cannot be simplified into a singular, clearly articulated form. Neptune has the type of awareness that is pulling insight from the collective unconscious, from other timelines, from previous generations, from places that we cannot fully understand with the logical mind. This is the type of awareness that emerges from places that cannot be named. And I want to be clear that Neptune is not the bad guy that a lot of modern astrologers claim it is. This is not necessarily a deceptive energy that intentionally hides things or occludes information. It can manifest that way, but very often it's so much more complex than that. Neptune transits are meant to bring you more deep psychological clarity. And just so that we can get our expectations of this planet in check, it's important to know that Neptune does not create clarity in the same way that literally any other planet creates clarity. Neptune is in its own universe. It is not playing the same game that Mars is playing, that Mercury is playing, that Uranus is playing, but it is intended to bring you clarity. Always remember that life is happening for you, not to you. And this pertains to Neptune transits as well. There is gold in a hard Neptune transit if you only have the emotional courage required to walk directly into the fog and be led wherever it wants you to go. There's a real aspect of surrender when it comes to Neptune transits. If you are a control freak, a Neptune transit is the most humbling thing that you can experience because it calls attention to the fact that you were never actually in control, and control was always an illusion. So why do we choose to blame Neptune transits when things fall apart? It's because the human brain often chooses easy answers and blame over the long game of having enough patience to allow the full picture to emerge. But when it comes to Neptune, that's exactly what it takes. We have to sit in a state of conscious awareness and allow the full picture to play out in its own time, or else we'll miss what was intended to be revealed. Neptune requires vulnerability and the release of control and allowing yourself to see what's right in front of you without trying to deceive yourself simply because self-deception is the easier thing to do. Again, going back to the coming out of the fog metaphor, I just think that this is such a powerful metaphor because it is frequently used to describe the awakening from manipulative, narcissistic, or abusive relationships where fog stands for fear, obligation, guilt. These are powerful psychological tools that will often be used against us in a lot of Neptune mimic situations. And emerging from the fog is a journey of reclaiming your boundaries, of finding clarity, and rediscovering your authentic self. So, as we move into this Sun square Neptune transit, where the sun is shining light, conscious light, on what has been previously occluded, let's consider that whether you are navigating the aftermath of a toxic relationship, working through the psychological haze of addiction, or simply trying to clear a mental block, the process generally involves several phases. The first phase is realization and clarity. It's that initial moment where you recognize the manipulation, the gaslighting, or the unhealthy patterns for what they truly are. The second stage that often arises during a Sun-Neptune hard transit is emotional turmoil. And this is typically a difficult period where feelings of grief, betrayal, and anger surface as you process the reality of the situation. The third phase is reclaiming your identity. This is the gradual process of unlearning toxic behaviors and rediscovering your personal values and rebuilding self-esteem. And then the fourth phase is setting boundaries. Learning to say no without guilt and refusing to tolerate treatment that compromises your well-being. This is learning that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain yourself. No. This is a full sentence. So today, this exact square is basically saying the stories and fairy tales that you've been telling yourself, that everything's fine, that we live in a world of butterflies and rainbows, that there's nothing to see here, don't worry about it. The illusion that avoidance is love, that you should just accept the reality that was handed to you without questioning it. That illusion is breaking, and the sun won't let you keep living in Neptune's fog. And it hurts. It hurts because you have to look directly at what's been there all along. But that's the point. You're being forced into clarity now, and the square is uncomfortable, but it's doing its job. It's showing you what needs to be seen so that you can act from truth instead of fantasy. There is an organization called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. This organization represents individuals who grew up in environments affected by strong Neptune mimics. And when I talk about Neptune mimics, I mean the forms that unconscious humans will use in order to fill the spiritual void of deprivation and disconnection. People who fall into the trap of using Neptune mimics are often very disconnected from themselves, from nature, from source or God, and from others. This manifests as alcoholism, addiction, other forms of dysfunction, including emotional neglect, abuse, or mental illness. When it comes to people who grew up in these environments, these are childhood experiences that often leave lasting psychological and behavioral patterns that persist into adulthood, even if the individual never develops an addiction themselves. People who were raised in this type of foggy Neptunian environment often carry patterns of hypervigilance or low self-esteem, and difficulty with intimacy stemming from growing up in unpredictable or emotionally unavailable households. They also tend to have difficulties with boundaries until the aspect is consciously realized, and then they have to slowly develop boundaries over time. This is one of the the, I guess, the missions or the journeys on the dharmic path of the individual with a hard Neptune aspect to develop boundaries in this lifetime. Good, solid boundaries. Remember that a boundary is the most loving thing that you can possibly do in relationship. Because when I am clear about who I am and what I want in my orientation to myself and the world and to you, then that clarity allows you the freedom to be who you are. But whenever I'm not clear, I don't have good boundaries, then there is oftentimes a sort of enmeshment that can develop between people. And then the environment gets foggy and hazy and everything slowly spirals out of control. So clear boundaries are loving. That's a loving thing, okay? And not ironically, many of the people that were born in this type of environment carry hard Neptune aspects in their birth chart, meaning that a personal planet is conjunct, square, or in opposition to Neptune, or they might also have Neptune on an angle. So this is just one example of the type of thing that can arise with a Sun square Neptune aspect. I'm going to leave some resources in the description box below, so check those out if this really resonates with you. If this is your personal journey and you have Sun in a hard aspect to Neptune in your chart, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear about the wisdom that you've acquired through this journey. Share something that can help another person. Share a resource, something you've learned, a bit of wisdom, a bit of insight, a bit of advice, whatever it is. You know, the astrology is great because it helps with self-awareness, but I think it's also great because the community is all about sharing our experiences. Something happens and we become more conscious as a result of a transit, and we want to share with other people. And my hope is that this video will reach somebody that needs to hear it, and I have no doubt that it will. I'm gonna cry. Oh, this is what happens. I have Neptune on the ascendant. I am deeply affected by other people and their journeys. Ugh. I also think it has to do with the fact that the Sun is squaring Neptune, and I'm just and the Sun is in Cancer right now, along with Mercury and Jupiter at the anaretic degree of Cancer. Look, I'm a crybaby this week. It is what it is, but oh my God. So I'm going to leave you with this one final thing. Remember that the Sun squaring Neptune is ultimately an opportunity to become more conscious of the energy in your life and of the unconscious forces that may be blocking your path to personal evolution. If there is something deep and emotional and complex that has been keeping you stuck, then these transits are the perfect opportunity to really take a hard look at that. All right, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. I hope this video left you with something useful. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.